In this problem, we've got a map, and we're asked how many ways we can go from point A up here in the upper left-hand corner down to point B in the lower right-hand corner along these roads if we can only move east and south. Okay, so we can only move this way to the right or this way south. Okay, so one way to approach this problem is just to look at each intersection and see how many ways there are to get there. For example, if we take this intersection right here, you can see there's really only one way to get there. You can only come from this direction because you can't come from the right and you can't come up from the bottom. So there's only one way to get to that intersection. Okay, and if we move over to this intersection, there's still only one way to get there because you can't come on this road and you can't come on this road. You can only get to this intersection from this road. Okay? And we can keep going along this road, and there's only one way to get here. You have to come from the west to that intersection. Okay? Because you can't come up from the bottom. Now if we go down along this side, it's kind of the same situation. We can only come from the north, and so there's only one way to get to this intersection. And the same way here, there's only one way to get to that intersection. We've got to come down along this road. Okay. All right. So we've gone along the top edge and the left edge of this map. Now let's go into the interior here. All right. Let's look at this intersection. There's three, roads coming into this intersection, but we can't come from the east and we can't come from the south. We can only come down this way. Okay, so again, there's only one way to get to this point. Okay, same way over here. Well, actually, let's wait on that one. Let's look at this intersection. Okay, we had one way to get to this intersection, and we have one way to get to this intersection. And in this case, we can actually come from the west, or we can come from the north. Okay, we had one way to get here, and we had one way to get there, so that means we have two ways to get to this intersection. We can either come from the west or we can come from the north. Okay. If we move down here, now here we can only come from the north. Okay, we can't come from the east to the south. So there are still only two ways to get to this intersection. Okay, because we had to go through this intersection to get there, and there were two ways to get there. All right. Let's keep moving down. We had one way to get here, and we had two ways, to get here. So we have a total of three ways to get to this intersection. Okay? I'm going to scroll in just a bit, give us more view of the map. Alright, now let's go down here. Now again, we had one way to get to this intersection. We had one way to get to this intersection, and we've got to either come from the west or the north to get there. So we had to come from this intersection or that intersection, so we have two ways to get to that point. And here, we can't come along this road and you can't come up from the bottom, so there's still two ways to get here. Okay, so it's the same as the node above it. There were two ways to get there, so there's two ways to get here. And when we come down to this intersection, we had two ways to get to this intersection. We had two ways to get from this intersection. So we have four ways to get here. Okay, we've got the two ways from here and the two ways from there, and they're both different. So it's a total of four ways. So you see what I'm doing? I can look back at the previous node or the previous intersection and see how many ways I can get to the next intersection. So here I have four ways I could have gotten to this intersection, three ways I could have gotten to this intersection. So I have a total of 7 ways to get here. Okay. Because I had to come from either this intersection or that intersection. Alright, let's keep working our way around. We had one way to get here, two ways to get here, so we have 3 ways to get here. And then finally, we come down here to B. This is our last intersection. This is what we're trying to figure out. We had 3 ways to get to this intersection, 7 ways to get to this intersection, so we have a total of 10 ways to get from A to B total. Okay, does that make sense? So that's kind of a handy trick to just look at each intersection and figure out how many ways there were to get to each intersection and add them up. So our answer here is 10. We had 10 ways to get from A to B.